It's Mark Ludwig from the Allegan Conservation District out visiting our cover crop plot, and it has been a very wet fall. As any of you who have been enjoying trying to farm in the this lovely 2013 season, and that's been a little hard on our harvesting. It's been great for our cover crops. And just looking at the different blends that we have got going on, you can see the radishes are growing enormous, as they will do. This cover crop plot had some heifer manure put on it, so it certainly was not limited by nutrients by any stretch. It's also a nice heavy soil, so plenty of potential to develop lots of biomass. Oh, and hey, there's a good one. Look at that thing. Just put my hand down there for some scale. There's a radish, boys. Nice thing about those things, they're about 90% water, so they will break down nicely in the spring after they frost kill. We have had some pretty cold nights. This is, pearl millet is that yellow guy right in the middle there. So that's been damaged by the cold, obviously, but not killed yet, so it's still hanging on, and obviously the radish is still doing just fine. These first couple ones are from our friends at Best Forage. They're Cover Crop Solutions blends. Really like these blends. Just gets you all kinds of good stuff. For example, here we've got tillage, radish, and oats. A little bit of clover coming up in here too. Boy, you can see those oats are really doing nicely. And not a whole lot for germ in there. It's really not showing any signs of setting seed, which is good. Man, look at that biomass. About time to turn the cattle out. Here we've got our friends at Green Valley, the Invest cover crop blends. We've got crimson clover and groundhog radish. A few radishes flowering out here. We've got radish and winter peas. See, the peas are really coming on in there. I like that blend too. Lots of nitrogen potential and nice radishes to get down deep. Crimson clover, annual rye, and groundhog radish. Really getting to be a huge fan of annual ryegrass. And you can kind of see why here. I mean, look at all that. Let me back up a little. There we go. Look at how much that's grown. And for everything you see on top, it's also really going down nice and deep. Also, just excellent quality forage. If we really did have some cattle to turn out here, we could feed them pretty darn well. We got annual rye, hairy vetch, and crimson clover. Yeah, you can see that. There's the hairy vetch starting to come through there. And that will, it's got good potential to winter over, everything but the radishes. We should see some good growth next year on that. The good news about this plot, as compared to last year, is we are going to be able to leave it in place over the winter, undisturbed, and see what happens. Boy, and still just tremendous growth on these radishes. Holy cow. Back up a little there, you can see that thing coming out of the ground. About time to call the Chinese grocer and cash in on those. Boy, oats and nitro radish. Boy, you can really see the difference variety makes. Here's we don't know the variety on these radishes, but they sure are, or the oats rather. But you can see that hasn't gone to seed at all. It's just growing biomass. And that's okay. We've got our different annual ryes, all doing well. We did do a little tillage to incorporate it, but I obviously Didn't get all the weeds. Got the old buttonweed or velvet leaf doing real well out here. And what do we got here? Triticale. Not bad, not outstanding, but some good cover. And right next door we got the old standby grain rye, variety not stated. And it looks okay. Boy, you compare that winter cereal with the spring cereal with these Cayuse white oats here. In this case from our friends at Desert Sun Marketing out of Phoenix, Arizona. Again, lots of growth, but no flowers. No grain being produced, so all that effort's going into making biomass. This is a cover crop I was not familiar with. This is black oats. A little different seed, a little more narrow than the white oats. Not a lot of germ to it. Apparently it's a subtropical or tropical cereal. Pretty popular with our friends in South America, but boy, the biomass growth has just been outstanding on this. I've really been impressed with this. Just growing like crazy. Here we've got McGregor barley, a winter barley. Again, it's putting energy into next year. And next door to that, we've got solar barley, which is a spring barley, and as you can see, it is flowering. It's actually, you can see the pollen. I don't know if you can see that. The pollen is on there, so not really any germ to it yet, but plenty of biomass, making a little bit more soil building for the future here. AU Golden Sun Hemp, and I think we can say the sun hemp is dead as a doorknob. A couple of weeks when we were out here, we did have an early snow, and everything was well covered, and that sun hemp is quite dead. And it's the downside to something tender like that. And as you can see, we got plenty of yellow rocket and henbit coming up in there, so we have all of that we want for sure. Trapper winter peas. The drill we use is not real good at cramming those big seeds in the ground, so gotta say the winter peas really didn't take off, but boy, where they're coming, they look pretty good. And again, that may got a pretty good shot at making it through the winter and coming on next spring. Crimson clover. Just plain beautiful when it's in flower, and boy, pretty darn beautiful growing out here in the bed too. Coming in nice and thick. Looking good, making nitrogen. There's good old red clover. And let's tell the red clover by this little watermark it gets on the leaves. Makes it a little easier to pick out. Here's some crimson clover right next to it. We can compare the two. But yeah, nothing wrong with old red clover. Good one to frost seed into your winter grains in the spring. If you got a heavy enough soil to pull off frost seeding. Doesn't work real well on sand. Here we've got beds of radishes, and they are in a little tight. But you can see it did a heck of a job of smothering. We don't see a lot of the buttonweed and that junk coming through here. I'm actually going to have to walk around or I'm going to trip over the dumb things. This is an oilseed type radish, and you can see it is going to seed pretty aggressively now. We are starting to slow down in growth pretty good. It's November 6th or 5th today rather. So we're definitely starting to run out of growing degree days. I'd say there's not a lot of noticeable differences between these radishes. Now these where they're in real tight, might be able to see or not, they're not getting the size that those in the blends were, where they had a little more room to grow. And I'm sure we'll have a few poking around here that you may be able to see. This is Lacy Phacelia tannacetifolia. This really did not germinate very well, which I'm kind of curious about, because our little drill, it's a nice little press wheel drill, and it usually did pretty well with the other small seeded stuff, and certainly last year's plot of Phacelia did better. But maybe a little better as a summer crop. I know it'll germinate very, very cold temperatures, but it is just not performing in this cold weather all that well. It's supposed to be good bee forage. Here we've got dwarf Essex rape. Again, we're in a little tight in here, but most of the weeds have been at least suppressed. I can see some buttonweed coming through there. There's a few of those devils in there, but not really having much luck flowering. I kind of look at the dwarf Essex rape and maybe these turnips, the old purple top turnips, or some of the more modern forage turnips, as maybe an alternative to some folks who don't want to pony up the money for the radishes. It's still, zoom out here, we're still accumulating these turnip bulbs here. Suppose if you're ambitious, you can come out here and pull them out of the ground and sell them. But fits in that same niche as the other brassicas, but considerably cheaper. The seed is smaller, the seed's less expensive, so maybe an option for those of you feeling a little like you got a little sticker shock from the price of those radishes. We've moved on to buckwheat. This is one of the ones we're calling a double crop, and this is what my friend Christina Carell at MSU Extension worries about. This has most definitely set seed. It is, well, it's mostly dead at this point. It's pretty frost sensitive, and frankly, I didn't expect it to be at all alive out here. But in spite of the snow, it is. We have not had a lot of frost events this fall, and I'm just chewing these up to evaluate whether we made grain or not. I think if this had been planted right after the wheat came off, you'd have had a successful double crop of buckwheat. Fantastic soil conditioner. I guess I do not worry so much about buckwheat escaping, but well, there you go. Opinions vary. Here we've got grain sorghum. Again, it's been beat up by the frost pretty good. Nonetheless, still alive. Millet, another warm season grass. Now this I see is also got a seed head, but I'm really not feeling any germ in there, so probably not gonna make weeds there. Here we got gray striped sunflowers, actually in bloom here in the lovely month of October. Interesting thing about the sunflowers, you notice there's no freeze damage on these guys at all. They are hardy to 27 degrees. I see one here, we had a heavy wet snow, and this one's actually has broken the stalk over, but still live, still trying to flower. So maybe a double crop option, again because of that long season. Next to that we have Amaranth. Pretty substantial amount of freeze damage to this, but not complete. Certainly didn't kill it. Now let's pull some of this off, and kind of beating around the seed head in my hand, see if I can feel any germ. Amaranth has very tiny seeds, and I'm not seeing that it formed any seed as of yet. But again, maybe something that would make a nice double crop, and boy, it's pretty enough. Certainly get the neighbors talking, you plant that stuff. Another one of our double crops. Here's mung beans, and I think I would just go out on a limb and call this a big flop. I don't see much for mung beans in there, and boy, there's certainly a pile of weeds. Next to that, cowpeas. And we did not get much of a stand with the cowpeas. Again, the seed's a little big for the drill we were using. There's an interesting little weed here. Maybe we'll comment on this. This is a smartweed, maybe Pennsylvania smartweed or prick thumb, I'm not sure which. That's actually in that buckwheat family. So, got some similar growth characteristics. Let's take another little walk. Oh, here's some soybeans. We did put in some non-GMO soybeans. You don't want to put the old bin run soybeans in because might get a visit from somebody, and don't think we're gonna make it. We were late for trying to put these in to make beans, but certainly good for making some biomass for us. The rest of this little field we had, I just went ahead and loaded up with annual rye and a few other components, and boy, you can really see it's filling this in. You can certainly see where we missed, and the mustard is 3 times as big and looking hardy. But where we got the seed in the ground, it's looking pretty good. And here we got a little lone radish that was in here. Here's a clump of physalia, a little bit of crimson clover coming in there. So I think we can throw a little diversity in with our cover crops instead of monocropping with the cover crops. Hold on to your lunch, I'm going to jump the ditch. There we go. One of the things the Copes brothers did, they tiled this land this year on the contour, and then when they took some of those leftovers and came out here and ran the drill right down the new tiles, try to get the soil structure back and looking good where those tiles went in. And boy, you can sure see where they had a little more space for those radishes to expand. They sure took advantage of it. They grew pretty darn big. Folks, I suspect this will be my last visit to our cover crop plot. I don't expect to see a whole lot of changes from here on out. We just don't have the growing degree days. But it's still open. There's a box of information out here, and you are welcome to come out and check it out. We're on 60th Street, a little south of Blue Star Highway, otherwise known as Grass Calf Road. And we'll do it again next year, by golly. Anyhow, Mark Ludwig, Allegan Conservation District.